show. Braden Gall of 440 Sports, who has been quite busy, I'd say, there in the Nashville mid-state area with Titans coaching hire, everything going on with the college football offseason, and more. Braden, how are you?
Doing well, boys. How are we today? Anything happening in your neck of the woods? Anything?
Just winning. Just a lot of winning on the recruiting trail. Yeah.
Yeah, as you would probably guess, and you've probably run across at least, Braden, a lot of celebrating with good news like player acquisition, and Tennessee basketball is doing quite well, and the Nico Mania will go through the offseason, but also enjoying challenges that Alabama is facing that it hasn't in quite a while. Kentucky basketball suffering a tough loss against South Carolina. So both enjoying the success that's happened in Knoxville, but also pointing and laughing at others, which is part of the beauty of college sports.
Oh, never lose the pettiness, ever. The pettiness is what drives us all. It's what makes us sports fans. And actually, we say that jokingly, but there's actual scientific studies on like brain activity that like your brain is more active when you are watching the thing you hate lose versus when you're watching the thing you love win. Like we are bizarre, strange creatures, and it's even worse, of course, in the South where we care way too much about this stuff. But no, there's very few things in like my personal life, like watching the Green Bay Packers beat the Dallas Cowboys as a kid who grew up in Texas as a Packers fan. That's about as good as it gets for me. But watching orange beat blue in basketball, that's also pretty close to the top of the list as well. And it's because those fan bases like earn that hate. Does that make sense? Like Kentucky basketball fans are such good basketball fans that it's like so easy to hate them for that. Dallas Cowboys fans are so passionate, it's so easy to hate them for that. Like it's sometimes you earn that. And Alabama fans, like you have the two greatest dynasties in the history of college football for a reason. And it's because it's a great program, and it makes it so easy to hate if you're a rival fan. That's for sure.
Braden, we want to dive into all the college football offseason stuff that's happening, how things are different in that. A quick basketball thought, though, Dalton Knecht. I know you've seen what Dalton is doing, and there is a long way to go in the season, but Dalton himself, the impact on Tennessee, what do you make of it, seeing just 36, 39 points, a drop-off to 25 this past week, the impact that he's been able to make?
Yeah, what a loser. No, I think like my first thought is Kevin Durant and TJ Ford, right? Are those the best two players that ever played for Rick Barnes? I don't, like, is Grant Williams the best Tennessee Volunteer to ever play for Rick Barnes? We can have lots of debates about this stuff. I mean, Kevin Durant is probably the answer. But ultimately, like, you need a player sort of like that if he's going to probably ever break his own career mold and win a championship. And maybe Dalton is that guy. I don't know. I think that's the ultimate question, and only time will tell, and March will roll around, and we'll have a discussion about, and we'll find out altogether whether or not that's true or not, because I think Rick Barnes is considered, I don't know, can you be like the Dan Marino of coaching basketball coaches? Like he's so well respected, clearly a brilliant mind, a guy that people like personally, a winner every stop of the way, but just doesn't have the thing that matters the most. And sometimes we evaluate that too much. I was having a very strange conversation with my wife about Dan Marino the other day and where he ranks in the quarterback pantheon, because it's like, one of the best releases of all time. Like, he was just ahead of his time in the NFL, but like is never going to be viewed the way maybe he should be viewed because he didn't actually win the Super Bowl. So is that right or wrong? We can debate that, but he's the kind of player that could change that narrative. And that's a legacy defining moment, for a guy like Rick Barnes, for sure.
On the football side, Braden, we're joined by Braden Gall, 440 Sports. A lot of people are enjoying Alabama having to kind of start all over and recruit and deal with some of the problems that other programs have to deal with. But Michigan seems like they're going to be losing their head coach, Harbaugh, to the NFL. What can you expect as far as players hitting the portal, some of the changes, some of the fallout from Harbaugh leaving Michigan to go to the league?
I assume there's another round of coaching dominoes, right? Just the way when Saban left, it affected like 5 other coaching jobs, right? Like all of a sudden, Washington had to hire a coach from Arizona. Arizona had to hire a coach from San Jose State, and San Jose State had to hire a coach. And so the dominoes will be there. It will thankfully be the last round of this in college football. I'm assuming when Harbaugh takes either the Chargers job or something else. I think Michigan was in for a larger rebuild no matter what, just in general. I think the tales of Alabama's demise are probably a little bit premature. You're bringing in one of the best coaching staffs in the country, one of the best offensive minds in the country, who's won in year one everywhere he's ever been. He's got a star quarterback, one of the top 3 or 4 rosters in America. Their schedule's more difficult, but like expectations at Alabama, I mean, they're going to be a preseason top 5, 6, 7 team in America. Michigan might actually be behind them in the rankings, depending because of what all they're losing. They're losing more. They're losing the offensive line. They're losing the quarterback. They're losing the elite veteran leadership that came back this year to win the national championship. And so I think Michigan's in for a further rebuild. On the same side of things, Ohio State is taking a major step forward. Georgia is the Ohio State in this analogy in the SEC. They're already great. They're preseason number 1. But Ohio State is going to be clearly preseason number 2, and it's because they've had such a huge week the last couple of weeks, keeping players home, going and getting guys in the portal. So I still think Alabama's in a much better spot than Michigan is, just from an overall talent perspective and who they're going to hire. I mean, if Harbaugh leaves today, Sharon Moore, the current offensive coordinator, I think is a really good coach, but he's probably the guy that gets the job. And so then there aren't any dominoes, but then is he good enough to win at that level? I think Harbaugh is a pretty special guy. Weird, but I think very, very special, and I think very few guys could do what he did at Michigan. And so I think more guys could win at Alabama. Not like Saban, but I think more guys can win at Alabama than it's easier to win there, if that makes sense, than it is to win at Michigan, in my opinion.
What's the better job, Michigan or LSU?
LSU. That's not, to me, LSU is in the argument for best job in America. You could put a number of teams in that conversation: Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio State. Michigan's not the best job in its own conference. So I would, you could argue it's more of like LSU's more in that 3, 4, 5 range, and I'd have Michigan more in like the 10, 11, 12 range, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yep, I would agree with that too. Braden Gall is with us, 440 Sports. You're also aware there is a big picture conversation that is happening partly because of the recent domino run from Alabama, then to Washington, then to Arizona, down to some Group of 5 schools as well that are affected by head coaching changes and new windows opening for players to transfer. Have you heard any real positive solutions to what has been this kind of challenge? Do you have any of your own that have come to mind here in the last couple of weeks since this has been a big topic?
Oh, so many of my own ideas. I have a conversation coming up on the website. Thank you for the opportunity to plug this. YouTube 440 Sports, myself, Paul Feinbaum, we sat down for about 30 minutes, and I asked him basically those questions. We went back and forth on what are we going to do? Like, what is college football going to do with the month of December? What are we going to do with having free agency and our draft and our playoff all at the same time? Does it level the playing field and make more teams capable of winning championships? We had all those kind of questions and conversations. That's coming up tomorrow on the 440 Sports YouTube page, myself and Paul Feinbaum, so make sure you check that out. I think you've got to figure out sort of a structure to the player movement stuff a little bit more, and that could mean a number of things. Ultimately, I think it's going to end, and I think we've talked about this, we're going to have revenue sharing and collective bargaining. Make them employees, guys. Make them employees. They're already employees really anyway. If you make them employees, yes, I know there's all kinds of legal stuff in HR and workman's comp and et cetera, but you know what? I don't have to deal with that. That's for somebody else that makes a bunch of money to deal with, some lawyer somewhere that gets paid like hundreds of dollars per hour to make sure all that stuff is worked out. Make them employees, and then all this is fixed. Your bowl opt-outs are fixed. Your transfer portal you can organize it and structure it when you want it to be put in place. You can change signing day and have it put in place. Everything can be structured the way the NFL does it, and maybe you don't like that idea, but I don't think it's good for the game to have everything as chaotic as it is. And I think it's better for coaches, players, fans, media, everybody to have it more structured and organized. And the only real answer to all of this is make them employees. Collectively bargain the $4 or $5 billion television contract that's coming from the networks to buy the playoff that's expanded now, and give them a bigger piece of that pie, then give them a seat at the table to negotiate this stuff, and then say, look, to earn this money, you got to play in a bowl game.
Yep.
To earn this money, you can't transfer. Because you know what happens in America? You sign an employment contract, and then you have to follow the rules, or you get fired. And that's how capitalism works. So,
yep. If you don't like it, you can go to the UFL.
Or play intramurals. You've got multiple options.
Oh, play intramurals, brother. Go play intramurals. Go play intramurals, brother. Heck yeah, man. 100%. Go for it. Hey, who do you think is going to be the biggest mover in the SEC this year? A team that started from the bottom and now they're here. Drake style. Who's going to be a big mover in your opinion?
I don't like his new stuff, man. So let me. I'm gonna pander, and then I'm gonna give you like a better answer.
Go for it.
Because I don't think Tennessee was at the bottom, but if you look at our preseason rankings, which we are going to have posted, of course, up on the YouTube page this week, 440 Sports, Tennessee is going to be in the playoff in our rankings. And so now that is because of the belief in the quarterback. It's also because everyone else around them in that place, let's say 9 through 15 in the rankings, preseason, it's all quarterback dependent. Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma is going to be potentially a star. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, how good is he going to be? Drew Aller at Penn State, good year last year. Can he be great? Cade Klubnik at Clemson, we don't know. DJU at Florida State, we think he's going to be pretty good. I like his game there with Norvell, but what's going on? Cam Rising's coming back at Utah, healthy. These are all the teams that are going to be in that mix, and I like Tennessee out of that group to sort of rise, and if they can get to that 10 or 11 range, that's a playoff spot, guys. The top 12 is a playoff team now in our rankings in the preseason. So I think that's a team that I would say middle of the pack to playoff status, because I think Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, Georgia, Alabama, like they're already kind of in the playoff mix, if that makes sense, right? So I think Tennessee goes from 4 losses to in a playoff conversation. Outside of that, there's a big gap, I think, after LSU and Oklahoma and Tennessee to the rest of the league. So at that point, you're talking Florida, Kentucky, Auburn, Texas A&M. So A&M is probably the one I would say goes from laughing stock, joke, firing coach, $70 million buyout to being like a really professionally well-run football program. So I think A&M is the team that I would say could jump up and be into that group, go from preseason not being ranked to challenging for a playoff spot, probably A&M, but I'm not putting my hand back on that burner just yet. The one I really don't like that I like is Florida. That's the one that I don't like that I like that. But I got a long time to make up my mind before we put the magazine out in May. So,
well, you provided some good pre-teases, Braden. What can people check out from 440 Sports now or coming up?
All kinds of stuff. SEC football. If you like SEC football, or if you live in the state and you're a Titans fan, of course, we have all. That's all we've got. It's 440 Sports YouTube page is all SEC football all the time with some Titans mixed in, and of course a new coach who's going to be announced around this time tomorrow. So a lot of stuff going on the website and the page. We've got everything else as well. We've got Predators programming. We've got Nashville SC programming. We've got all kinds of stuff if you want to care about what's going on in the state. We've got Memphis Grizzlies stuff. So come on over and hang out with us, 440 Sports. But the YouTube page itself is dedicated to SEC football and to football in general. So give us a subscription. We'd really appreciate it. And jump into the comments and come hang out. We do appreciate it.
Like, subscribe. We ask for it. Ask you to do the same for 440 Sports. Braden, it's always great to talk to you. Thanks for the time today, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, why not just talk about this stuff when you can look at us while we're talking about it, you know?
There it is, bro.
Well, people have their responses to that question as well, but we will march on nevertheless.
Talk to you later, boys.
Thanks, Braden. Braden Gall joining us.